Hi everyone, welcome to Zibakeriz, where I show you how to create beautiful decorated cakes and cupcakes. So I'm going to start into this video right away. Over here I have a bowl of American buttercream, and American buttercream tends to have a little bit of a yellow tone. So to get rid of this, I like to use white gel-based food coloring, and that basically tends to offset that yellow tone in your buttercream. So I'm using this white gel food coloring by Chef Master. I like to use a large bottle since I am really into decorating, so I tend to use a lot more of these gel-based food colorings, but you can also get this in a smaller bottle as well. But I would recommend getting colors like white and black in the larger bottles, since they are the colors that I do, or most people, most cake decorators do tend to use the most. So you want to add a generous amount of the gel food coloring into the buttercream and give everything a nice mix. And I also want to mention that as you are mixing, this process while you are adding the food coloring tends to allow you to get rid of any of those air pockets, and that's really going to help you with creating your buttercream flowers, since they will tend to be a lot more smoother as well. So you can see that it is whiter, it's not showing up as clearly on camera, but I'm going to still add some more of that white gel-based food coloring in my buttercream, and you want to add it in until you're happy with how bright and white your buttercream looks like. Since these are wedding cupcakes, I want to make sure that they are a very nice bright white color, and since that's the only color that we're really going to be using, it's important that you do make sure that it is nice and white and doesn't have that yellow tone in your buttercream. So now we have the perfect consistency buttercream for piping buttercream flowers. Another tip that I want to give is if you don't have a white gel food coloring, you can always add a little bit of purple, and that will also offset that yellow tone in your buttercream as well. So just thought I'd give you that helpful extra tip as well. So now this buttercream is ready to be put into our piping bag. So I actually tend to prefer using disposable piping bags rather than reusable ones, but that's completely up to you. Now I'm adding in a coupler, and you just want to cut off the top part of your piping tip and then place your piping tip on top, and just you get this extra little piece with your coupler. Just use that to tighten up your piping tip in your piping bag. And now I like to fold the edges of my piping bag and cup it over my hand, and that just makes it a lot easier when it goes to filling your piping bag with your buttercream. Another thing, you don't want to overfill your piping bag, especially when it comes to creating buttercream flowers, because the heat of your hand will tend to make your buttercream a lot more softer. So just keep that in mind when you are filling your piping bag with your buttercream. So I over here have a piping tip number 104. You've probably seen this piping tip a couple of times now in my other floral cupcake decorating videos. This is the most common piping tip. It is narrow on one end and it is a little thicker on one side, and this is known as the petal tip. So now I'm going to show you a little bit of color mixing, since that is something you guys are really interested and would like to see in my videos. So I'm going to show you how to create this beautiful leaf green shade for my buttercream. So you're going to need a little bit of brown, a little bit of leaf green by Chef Master, as well as some lemon yellow. So this is going to be the perfect green shade for these wedding cupcakes. And you want to start off by taking some of that leaf green, and you want to add in about 3 drops of this gel-based food coloring. This is something that, you know, you kind of want to eye and keep adding more or less depending on how you actually feel about that color. So you can see that I added in 3 drops of that green gel food coloring, and it is a nice medium-ish green shade. So just give everything a nice mix until it's all well incorporated. So now to this green shade, I'm going to be adding in some of this lemon yellow gel-based food coloring. What this color is going to do is it's going to brighten up this green. It's going to almost make it kind of neon green, like a bright lime green. In this process of constantly adding in our gel food coloring and mixing the colors actually helps you get rid of any of those air pockets in your buttercream and allows you to have a lot more of a silky smooth buttercream texture, great for piping your flowers and your leaves. Now I'm adding in a little bit of brown gel food coloring. So this brown food coloring will make the buttercream a lot more realistic. So your leaves will look a lot more realistic, and they won't look kind of flat in terms of just being a green shade. That was definitely not the color that you want when you go to piping wedding cupcakes, especially since wedding cupcakes, you want to make sure that your buttercream flowers and your leaves are a lot more realistic since they'll add more dimension. So since I added in that brown gel food coloring, I felt like I needed a little bit more, so I added in another drop of that brown gel food coloring and gave that a mix as well. This is just going to make your green leaf not brown, it's just going to add a little bit more depth to the green, making it a little bit more realistic. Obviously, the type of green that you want completely is your preference. I personally really loved how this color is looking. If you want to make your green a little bit more darker and deeper, you can always add in more green gel food coloring. If you want it to be more brighter, you would go ahead and add in some yellow. And if you want it to be a little bit more realistic and a little bit more even darker, you would add some more brown gel food coloring. But I really love how this color came out, but pretty much play around with these 3 different types of gel food colorings and you'll end up with a variety of different shades of green. So now taking your piping bag, you just want to open it up, and I'm going to place a Wilton tip number 366, which is a leaf tip. You want to carefully place that inside of your piping bag. Make sure that it is fitted nice and tightly. Push that all the way through the edge of the piping tip and then place your hand where you want to cut your piping tip from. So push your piping tip back, place your hand where you want to cut it, and you want to make sure that you cut enough so that your piping tip is actually exposed, so where the buttercream comes, it's not blocked by the piping bag. So now that you fitted your piping tip, you want to make sure that it is kind of facing towards like a beak shape. That's how you're going to be piping your leaves when we are going to go ahead and pipe them on our flowers. So now you want to flip the edges of your piping bag, and I like to cup that over my hand. It just makes the process a lot more easier when I go to filling up my piping bag with my buttercream. So add that in nice and carefully, making sure again that you don't overfill your piping bag with your buttercream, otherwise you do end up not only having less control when it comes to piping, you also cause your buttercream to get a lot more warmer a lot quicker, making it a lot more difficult to pipe your buttercream flowers and leaves. So now that both my piping bags have been fitted with my piping tip and the buttercream, now I'm going to go ahead and show you how to create all these beautiful different types of buttercream flowers, perfect for your any wedding cupcake occasion. So over here, I just wanted to show you, I baked my cupcakes inside of these white cupcake liners, which I found to look a lot more like a wedding. You can find these on Amazon. You can also find them probably at your local bake shop as well. I just found that they make your buttercream flowers for wedding cupcakes look a lot more elegant, but it is completely optional. You can use regular cupcake liners if you want as well. So first of all, I'm going to start off with my Wilton tip number 104, making sure that the thin side is facing up, and I'm going to create this small triangle dome in the center, since I am showing you how to create a rose. So start off by creating this small little spiral in the center of your cupcake. Now that you've created that spiral, we're going to start off by creating petals, but you want to make sure that if you have any buttercream on your piping tip, you go ahead and wipe that off before you start making your piping tips, otherwise that will end up ruining your flower. So now what you're going to do is you're going to start from the bottom and go up and then pull down while you are constantly turning your cupcake. So you want to halfway overlap on your previous petal, and you want to keep turning your cupcake as you create these petals. What you will notice is that I'm actually creating smaller petals. On my other videos, I've created longer petals, and that tends to give you a bigger, longer rose petals, but that's completely optional how you pipe your flowers. It's up to you. So as you get closer and closer to the edge of your piping cupcake liner, you want to start to angle out your piping tip a little bit more. That's what's going to give you a little bit of a bloomed rose that you normally see, and gives you more of a realistic flower look and a lot more dimension to your flower as well. And once you're happy with all the rose petals that you've added, you can obviously go back and fill them up, but this is pretty much how you create a beautiful buttercream rose with using the Wilton tip number 104. And of course, starting with the center, you want to create that little dome in the center, then you want to create that spiral, and then you want to just create petals on petals overlapping on your previous one. Now that I've showed you how to create this beautiful rose, I'm going to show you how to create this beautiful triple rosette cupcake. Same thing that I showed you earlier, but I'm going to be creating that dome, and then I'm going to create a spiral. I'm doing this in one kind of corner of the cupcake because I'm going to be creating 3 of these mini roses. So again, you want to overlap halfway on your previous rose and keep creating a few petals until you have kind of like a medium-sized rose. You want to make sure that you don't make it too big, otherwise you won't be able to fit in 2 more roses. So again, create a dome, follow the same step of creating a spiral, and then create overlapping petals. And you want to make sure that you don't make these roses too big, otherwise you won't be able to fit in all of them into your cupcake. So once you're happy with how many petals you've added, you're going to again create that same process of creating a little dome, and then creating small little spiral in the center, and then creating little petals that are overlapping the previous petal. I prefer to usually do odd petals, so 3, 5, 7, and continuously keep doing that. Once you're happy with the petals and the 3 roses, now what I'm going to do is take the Wilton tip number 366, and I'm going to fill that in those gaps where you see that I have left the space. That's you want to make sure that you're holding your piping tip in the face of a beak. So you want to, and then what you're going to do is you're going to create this back and forth motion, and that's going to give you that leaf look or design on your leaves. So push back and wiggle back and forth and release. Wiggle back and forth and then release. So you can see that's what's going to give you that realistic leaf look. So wherever you feel like you have more of a gap, you can always fit in more leaves. So I've placed 3 in the larger gap, and then where I see this one gap, again, back and forth and pull up. And I also wanted to add one in the center, kind of to make it look like a beautiful wedding floral bouquet. And that's pretty much how you create this beautiful triple rosette cupcake with the leaves to fill in the gaps. So now for the next buttercream flower, I'm going to show you how to create an enclosed peony buttercream flower. So again, you want to create a dome, but this time what you're going to notice is that you hold your piping tip on an angle and pull inwards. Rather than actually starting to fan out, you're going to enclose the flower the entire time while you are overlapping halfway on your previous petal. You want to keep doing that until your petals start to bloom. So in a normal rose, you'll start to notice that I actually start to fan out my buttercream petals. But with this peony, what you'll notice is that as I even start to bloom my flower, my petals are still enclosed, and kind of you hold from one side and then you pull inwards and then you pull down. You want to keep doing that even all the way to the edge of your cupcake liner. So again, hold your piping tip, pull downwards, and as you get closer to the edge, what you also want to do is kind of start to create longer petals and start to enclose your buttercream flower, and that's what's going to give your peony a little bit more of a realistic buttercream look as well. You want to keep doing this until you are happy with the amount of petals that you've added on your flower. And this is pretty much how you create this peony flower. To make this peony look even more realistic, I would go with a yellow center and then add the white petals, but since this is for wedding cupcakes, I wanted to keep all of the colors just white. And of course, when you are making wedding cupcakes, you obviously have to make a lot more, so obviously sticking to a few colors will make the process a lot more easier as well. But that's pretty much how you create a beautiful white peony. Now for the next buttercream flower, I'm going to show you how to create this beautiful ruffled flower. So you want to start in the center, create this heart shape, and pull down. You want to make sure that the petal is very thin, and you want to keep repeating this same process as you go all the way around your cupcake. So you want to make sure that you are constantly rotating your cupcake along the way. So again, start from the center, create this up and down motion, kind of creating a little heart design on the top, and then pulling down. You want to keep doing this all the way around your cupcake until you reached where you started creating these beautiful petals. So now that you've created all of these petals going all the way around, now you're going to repeat this same method, but kind of creating these smaller petals overlapping halfway on the previous petal, making sure that these ones are slightly smaller than the previous one, but again, starting from the center, creating this heart shape and then pulling down while you constantly keep turning your cupcake. So hold it, create small heart and pull down. Once you've created these petals going all the way around your cupcake, you can see it looks very nice and ruffled. Now what I'm going to do is I have some of that green buttercream in my piping bag for my leaf tip. I do have some extra in a bowl still as well, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take some of this green buttercream and I've placed it into a separate piping bag, and I've fitted it with a piping tip number 233. Which is a grass tip. So you can see it has a little bit of these dots on the top, and this is going to help us create our center bud inside of our flower. So you want to make sure that you're holding your piping tip straight up and you want to just lift. So I'm not going to be pulling up too much. I'll show you that in another flower, but you just want to add pressure and then lift kind of a little bit closer to the cupcake. You don't want to lift too much, otherwise that's not the flower center that I'm going for, but you want to add pressure and lift up. You're going to end up with this beautiful small little tight bud in the center of this flower, and you can see you end up with this very beautiful ruffled flower. Kind of looks very close to an anemone, but you can see it as any beautiful ruffled floral design, which would be beautiful for any wedding cupcake. So now that I've showed you how to create 4 different types of buttercream flowers, now I'm going to show you the next buttercream flower. But before I do that, I just wanted to show you how to create leaves on my peony. So over here, I'm going to take the coupler off, which was fitted with the grass tip, and I'm going to place a Wilton tip number 104 on top of this. I just wanted to show you how to create leaves on my peony using the Wilton tip number 104, since I got someone to request me to show you how to create those leaves that I showed you in my previous cake decorating video. So I do want to mention that I listened to all of your comments. I love reading them. I love responding to you guys, and it shows me how much you guys enjoy and learn from my videos. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for all the love and support you guys constantly give to me on my channel. It really allows me to keep sharing what I really love to do, and that's show you cake and cupcake decorating videos. So I'm going to get back into the video. So I'm going to show you how I created that leaf using the Wilton tip number 104. So what you want to do is you want to hold your piping tip with the thin side facing upwards, and you want to create this upward motion and then pull down. So you want to make sure that you go up, kind of create a ruffle design and pull down. You can add as many leaves as you want around the edge of your cupcake. So again, or you can just add pressure, squeeze up and pull down, and that's going to give you that one level of leaf. Or you can kind of wiggle and pull outwards, or you can also just keep continuously wiggling to the side, and you're going to get different styles of your leaf. But that's pretty much how you create that leaf using the Wilton tip number 104. There is no right or wrong way of doing it. It's pretty much just kind of letting your piping tip freely move around, and it's going to give you that realistic illusion of those leaves on the side. And now I'm going to take that Wilton tip number 104 off of my piping bag. And using the coupler, I'm going to place a Wilton tip number 81 on top of the piping bag. And then you want to twist the little piece on top just so it is nice and secure. So now I'm going to show you how to create a chrysanthemum using this Wilton tip number 81. I've shown this in quite a few videos now, but this seems to be one of the most popular flower that you guys really love, and I find that it's really beautiful as a wedding cupcake flower design as well. So I'm going to show you, you want to hold the piping tip a little bit close to the edge, and then you want to lift up, and you want to use the edge of the cupcake liner kind of as a support to help you lift your piping your petals upwards, while you constantly keep turning your cupcake as well. You want to keep doing this until you reach all the way to the end where you started. Now for the next row, you want to overlap halfway on your previous petal, following that same method of applying pressure and lifting upwards. You're going to have to keep doing this all the way around until you reach the center of your cupcake. Also, if you guys are interested in more in-depth videos, I'm going to be launching some online courses. And if you are interested, remember to sign up to my email list on my website, www.zibakeriz.com, to know when I will launch those online courses. And if you already are subscribed to my email list, I'm going to start something new by sending out emails every time I upload a new YouTube video with some sort of helpful video tutorials, as well as a little guide of what I'm going to be showing in my videos as well. So that's something new I'm going to give a try. Hopefully you guys like it, and if it works out, I'll continue to do that with all the uploads that I give out every week. So now back to the video. I created a little bit of a dome in the center of my cupcake, and that's just going to create this height to the chrysanthemum. So as you get closer towards the inside of your chrysanthemum, you'll start to notice that your piping tip is going to start to become more vertical as you get closer and closer to the center of your cupcake. So that is something to keep in mind. So just like when you are creating a rose, you start to fan out and your piping tip goes on an angle. Just like this with the chrysanthemum, your piping tip will start to be more vertical. And that's pretty much how you create this beautiful buttercream chrysanthemum. I have made this flower a couple of times, so I'll leave a link in the eye icon above for other videos that I've shared using this piping tip to create the flower. Now for the next buttercream flower is a zinnia. So using the same tip number 104, I'm creating small little petals on the edge of the cupcake liner. You want to create this small little curve and then pull down. You want to create small little petals while you constantly keep rotating your cupcake. And you'll notice that the more consistent you are with your piping tip and creating the same size of those petals, you're going to end up with this beautiful ruffled edge zinnia. Now you're going to overlap halfway on your next petal, creating that same motion of applying pressure, creating that little curve, and then pulling down while you constantly keep rotating your cupcake. So I'm going to do this one more time, creating that same motion, and as you get closer towards the inside of your piping, inside of your cupcake, you'll notice your piping tip kind of angling inwards. And you do want to make sure that your thin side of your cupcake, your piping tip is actually facing upwards. Now I could keep going all the way to the center using that same technique, but what I'm going to do over here is similar to what I did with the previous ruffled flower, is I'm going to fill the center with some green using that grass piping tip that I showed you earlier. And this is going to give a lot more dimension to the center of this flower, and it's going to add a little bit more greenery to our wedding cupcake design. So again, instead of the previous one where I actually didn't lift that much, this one I'm actually applying pressure and then lifting upwards to create longer center stem buds, you could say, whereas for the other one I didn't lift as much. This is going to give a little bit more of a realistic look to your flower, to the zinnia. But this is pretty much how to create this beautiful buttercream zinnia flower with this green center. But this is pretty much how to create these beautiful wedding floral cupcakes. I decided to do only 2 colors. It just makes it a lot more easier, especially if you are making this for a wedding. You're going to need to make a lot of them, so sticking to 2 colors and different flowers will make the process a lot easier. So all 5 of my cupcakes were made with the Wilton tip number 104, except for the chrysanthemum, which was made with the Wilton tip number 81, and you only need a few piping tips and a few gelled food colorings. But I hope you guys found this tutorial helpful, and if you aren't already subscribed to my channel, please do so, since I upload a new video each week. And if you have any sort of suggestions for future videos, please leave that in the comment section down below. I love hearing your suggestions, and I hope to see you guys in my next video.